Okay, we're back. I'm your host, BKP, and we're at Sycamore Crossing in beautiful downtown Blue Ridge on this Friday morning. And our next guest, I have with us 9th District Congressional Congressman Doug Collins. Congressman Collins, are you with us?
I'm ready, Brian. How are you today?
I'm great. And is the aroma Delta Jet Fuel South yet? Are you?
Yes.
No, I'll never forget, Congressman. That's your very first return home. I have that imprinted in my head as the sweetest aroma is Delta Jet Fuel South, right? Am I right?
Exactly. A Delta Jet pointed south and jet fumes in my head.
Exactly.
My nostrils is a great thing. It is.
Congressman, here's what I want to do this morning, and this is what I thought about last night when I discussed with your office about you being on this morning. I said, what direction do I want to go in? And I'm just going to put a general direction. I, for one, folks out there, believe that there's several media groups that are not allowing the good work. There is some good work that's going on in the House of Representatives, and it's not being put out, talked about. There's a lot of things happening with veterans. There's down payments on the border wall. There's things happening in the House. So, Congressman, that's where I want to do it. I just want to lay it out. And why don't you just tell us some of the great things that are taking place in the House of Representatives that's not getting out to the media?
Well, I would love to, because I think that is an important part. And I understand when most people look at Washington, they don't see a difference. You know, they House members and Senate members are sometimes, you know, what is the difference? And I understand that. I think the biggest issue that we've got here, though, is we've got a president, you know, frankly, who wants to do stuff. We got a president who is working hard. We got a Congress that has set out some bold visions. And I'm going to be just frank with you. Last week was a disappointment. Last week was a failure. On the Senate side for health care. House, you know, just go back to what the House has done for the first, 6 months of this time. We have passed the bills that are on the VA. We've actually got passed through. And then we've actually passed a health care bill that began to get us out of Obamacare, gets us away from the dynamic of government intrusion into health care, and begins to get us on a path in which people can actually have access to affordable care. And then there's one that really got me and struck me the most. Well, you know, something you and I have talked about a great deal, and there's a lot of other things out there, but this one is something that has affected Northeast Georgia for a number of years since it came in. That's called Dodd Frank. It was the banking law that really just changed everything, and it's caused a lot of our community banks, a lot of our smaller banks, and basically a lot of our businesses to have trouble. And then the unconstitutional CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which actually literally gets into the wallet of everybody who carries a credit card. And on the day that Comey was testifying in the Senate, when all the world was transfixed on what the former FBI director was going to say, we passed a repeal of Dodd Frank and a reorganization to the CFPB. And did anybody want to pick that up? No. We were actually the biggest regulatory overhaul in history almost went unnoticed because everybody's chasing something else. So I think when you look at this and you look at what's going on, we have 260-ish plus bills that have passed the House. Many, by the way, are almost completely unanimous. I mean, we're talking Republicans and Democrats that are simply sitting in the Senate where Democrats have decided to just shut the world down. So I think when you focus on the fact that we're looking at real people doing real things and worrying about our districts, the House can say we've done our work.
Besides this right here, because like I said, and I want our viewers out there to know, and I think a congressman will tell you, if there's things in the House that I disagree with or have question or issue with, I'm going to directly call you, and you know that. So this is not a cheerleading session for you, and I know you understand where I'm going with that. This is an opportunity to say exactly what you said. We're in North Georgia, and we have small banks up here, and we have people in the banking industry that I know very well that, you know, we shut the door and they say, hey, the regulations are stacked three foot high if you stack them that high on the industry, but that kind of information is not getting out. What other ways are you have an opportunity to get this kind of information out to especially your constituents here in the 9th District?
Well, one of the best ways, and it's really interesting because, you know, everybody talks about Comey and everybody talks about the stuff that we've done. I would encourage everybody to go to our website, our dougcollins.house.gov. We put out stuff on Facebook, our Twitter account, but also on our YouTube account. And I would encourage people to go because there's a video that's been seen a lot. I mean, literally millions of times. So me actually questioning Comey last fall. These are ways that you can get around and find out what's actually happening on Capitol Hill directly from us. Sign up for our newsletter. We give you those kind of things. I want to tell you, but you and I, and you've been perceptive enough to pick up on this for years, is this issue of regulatory burden and the things that the president actually has talked about, and I've talked about for a long time now. You mentioned the banks. I'll tell you a story to show you how bad this is. One of the first meetings I had right before the time I was getting in Congress just a few years ago, I met with a bank president, a small bank, 2 locations. We're sitting there and talking, and he said, I have to tell you a story about Dodd Frank. And I said, okay. He said, we got audited. The bank regulators come in. He said, they came in with almost 14 bank auditors or examiners. Exactly. And they got mad. They got mad because we didn't have a conference room that would fit them. He said, Doug, the funny part about it is we don't have that many employees in the 2 banks. And I said, it is amazing to me how that kind of thing is crushing, and how, the situation that the Democrats took control of and worked it. So in the House, we're focusing on real problems, real issues in the world, and we're passing stuff that we would love to have, get through the Senate. And I think that's a distinction that needs to be drawn. It's not an excuse. I've called the Senate rules, into question on many times when they have to go through this 60 process. But frankly, last week we saw a dysfunction in the Senate over a bill that only needed 50. So we're just continuing to work hard and just do the things we promised the people. Well,
let me ask you a question, and I want to go that direction just for a minute, because this is I guess, what's that big word, deja vu? You and I were having this conversation not even a year ago, and we were talking about, I could go back to our interviews not even a year ago, and you were actually numbering the amount of legislation that the House had passed had been sitting in the Senate. Okay, so let's go there. And you would always come on and say, look, we've got this many bills, we've moved over there, and we just want to get them to the president's desk. If we could get the Senate, get them to the president's desk, we're doing our job. So now they're in the Senate, and I mean, I guess obviously I don't know where you have an answer on this, but what's the frustration level of you and your colleagues saying, hey, we promised our people back home we were getting it to the Senate, and we even helped campaign for these guys and girls over here, and said, hey, we'll get you the majority, get our stuff to the desk with the pen. What's the frustration level on that, Congressman?
It's pretty high. I mean, it is among a lot of us, but there's also a frustration level that Brian, it's also we have to acknowledge as well, and you acknowledge it in your business. People who are listening and watching right now acknowledge this all the time. And we're not talking about getting everything we want. I mean, this is not one of those things where we're saying we're simply saying, from the House perspective, we've done our part now. And I was very frustrated with healthcare in the sense of, we gave them a bill. Now, we can disagree, and believe me, I got a lot of people who call my office every day that disagree with what we passed in the House. But also, you can't deny the facts that the premiums are going up. People can't use their insurance. In Northeast Georgia, most providers on the federal exchange have only one insurance provider, maybe 2, and then no doctors that accept it. We can't keep in the same vein. And I think what's happening for us is if we can't pass stuff, if they're not willing to legislate and they're not willing to do simple things, then it's very frustrating, to say, okay, here's what we have to have. So you have the problem of the Democrats obstructing, which is exactly what they're doing, but also you have Republicans who can't come together and say, okay, we didn't get 100% of what we wanted here, but we got 85, 90% of what we wanted. I'll vote yes on that. And that's become a struggle in the Senate, and it's become a struggle that we've seen so far. So my goal is to say, let's work on doing what we promised. There's not a Republican in the Senate that voted no last week, either the 7 who voted no on repeal or the 7 or others who voted. None of them ran on keeping Obamacare. And that's just a simple statement. None of them ran. None of them had big problems when it was 2 years ago and we passed a repeal bill to go to the President Obama, who was going to veto it. Where was their genuine concern then? I think that's the problem that we got to have.
I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know, because I say so often on my show, because there's been 3 election cycles. Okay, 3 election cycles since Obamacare, and the reality is there's not one Republican congressman or one Republican senator that did not run on repealing Obamacare. Everybody there had an election cycle to where somewhere they told their voters that they would repeal Obamacare. Am I wrong on that?
No, and we always said, and look, after October 13, the dynamic changed. October 13, it actually went into effect. So we knew that there had to be, and that's why we have Tom Price at HHS. That's why we have the ability right now to redo these markets and actually get an individual healthcare market back again. Look, last week I took to the floor last Friday morning. You know, I serve not only in leadership, but I serve on rules and judiciary.
Right.
And I did the rule for a couple of bills that we had. The VA bill, actually, it was last week, was we finished up, which by the way is a very good piece of legislation. But we was out there and we were just going through the morning, and unfortunately, my colleague from New York, Ms. Slaughter, she decided that she was going to talk about how great the night before was in the Senate and that the health care bill failing. And so I just went on, and I encourage people to go, and if anybody needs to, they can call our office. We'll send them the clip. They can go on and see it. But I made this statement that was basically the concern that what happened in the Senate last week was not a victory, and it was not heroic. It was a determination that the process was going to stop. And I think that was concerning to me, is that when we won't even follow through on the process of what's going on. And at the end of the day, when we look at it from the perspective of this is a failing system, and this is something that we've got to deal with, I just don't understand how, you can continue to say we want to fix something, but yet you won't do anything to try and get there to fix it to the very people. And so I challenge everyone who supports Obamacare to come to my district and tell these people who don't have the health insurance, who don't have the doctor, who said they could keep their doctor but they couldn't, who wanted to keep their health plan but they couldn't, who said that, by the way, remember President Obama said $2,500 decrease in premiums. We've had astronomical increases in premiums, not decreases in premiums. So I think this is the part but it goes back to a governance issue. And I think this is what I'm going to try and continue to do and try and work with, is to simply say, let's find the conservative principles, let's do the things that we promise, and let's move forward. We're going to disagree. We may not get it all at one whack, but we're going to get it done. And I think the House is showing it can do that most of the time, and we're just not getting any help.
Well, Congressman, I just in what short time we have left, let me ask you this. Three subjects, because, before the president was elected, there was a lot of discussion about the VA health care, and I know that's very important where you're concerned, especially in your district and nationally, but the VA, criminal justice reforms, and down payment on the border wall. So let's try to get something on all three of those in what short time we have left.
Oh, we can definitely do it. Support the president. We put what the president requested in our budget bill, our appropriations bill we passed last week. That's in the bill. Now it goes to the Senate. We're going to have I'll just go ahead. We're going to have a bumpy September dealing with appropriations and debt ceiling, but we'll deal with that. But the House has said we believe in the border wall, which, by the way, Schumer, Obama, and Clinton all voted for back, but they want to forget that. VA bill, and the stuff we passed 4 major pieces of VA legislation that I agree with Senator Isaacson on. Senator Isaacson made a statement the other day. He said we might as well just call these the no excuses bill. Secretary Shulkin has no excuses now to not make the VA what it should be for our folks as we move forward. So I think as we look forward in those regards, those are the best things that we can look forward to. And the last one was, give me a reminder again.
I think
I hit all 3, but
I said criminal justice, build the wall.
Oh, criminal justice reform. There you go.
Yes.
Criminal justice reform. We just introduced a bill called the Redemption Act. It builds on what we're doing here in Georgia, but does it in a different way. Most people who get sentenced, especially to federal prison and even state prison, are going to eventually end up back in our communities. What we're doing is from a money and moral issue. I call it M&Ms. Money and moral. From a conservative perspective, we need to do it, spend our dollars very wisely. And from a moral issue, we believe that people who make mistakes should have the opportunity to make something of themselves while they're incarcerated, not shortening their sentences, not being soft on what they do, but have them, when they go into the federal system, be evaluated so that we can begin to set benchmarks in which they're regularly treated and regularly held to accountability, personal responsibility, Republican principle, Republican idea here to say we want to see you better so that when you go back to your homes, your families, and your communities, you're a productive citizen and not somebody who's simply going to be going back to prison pretty soon. So we're excited about what we're doing there. And again, for me, it all starts and ends with the 9th District. And that's just what we're doing.
Thank you, Congressman. I know, I guess let me ask this again. Is there a feeling, we know, and that was our theme today, is to give you an opportunity to talk about accomplishments that are actually taking place in the House that people are not getting an opportunity to see. But is there a little concern of coming home in a break and getting the feeling from your constituents or getting emails or whatever saying you guys didn't get anything done? Is there a concern on that, which we know the truth, but we're trying to get it out?
Yeah. No, I look at it as an opportunity, Brian. I've always done that. I've always been in this district, and I always look at it as an opportunity. For me, it's my job to explain. It's not people's job to go out and have to find it. It's my job to explain. We're going to give them every opportunity to know what's going on, to what we're doing. And I've always put my voting record and my discussions up. That's why I'm on with you all the time. That's why I'm all over trying to say, here's what we're doing. And I look forward to it. Those who agree with me, those who disagree with me. But we've got a country that is the best in the world. And when we understand that, and we start focusing on what matters to the folks in Blue Ridge, to the folks in LJ, to the folks all over this listening here, just to simply say, guys, conservative principles matter. Conservative principles are what everybody lives most of their lives on. And it's time for me, as you know, to be able to share that. And I'm looking forward to the month to do it. Is it frustrating? Sure. But I think we've got an opportunity that we can't waste here, because, you know, the things that we have done, I mean, look at what the president's done, what we passed in the House. We passed 14 congressional review acts, which cut billions, 18 billion plus, out of regulatory requirements. I mean, that's just some good stuff that's going on out there. So we're going to keep spreading the message, and we're going to keep talking about it. And you asking great questions help us all out.
Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate your time. You have a good day, hey, get out of there. That's all I have.
We'll look forward
to get out of there for a minute. All right, thank you,
Congressman. I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, thank you, sir. 9th Congressional District Congressman Doug Collins, and we're going to take a brief break. He will be in studio next week. Congressman Collins, next Thursday, 8:30, he will be live in our studio, and it's going to be a working interview, because we're going to put together some strong questions to let the congressman tell you what's been going on in D.C. I'm your host, BKP. Now, don't leave after these messages. We're going to have a brief Fannin County update. Commission Chair Stan Helton is here. He's going to give us a brief Fannin County update before we do our all-star political panel, and we're hoping to do this about twice a month. So stay with us right after this break. Commission Chair Stan Helton.